The Big Fella Weight Loss Podcast is the place for real, open and honest talk about weight loss and GLP-1 medication. Subscribe now and don't miss an episode. Welcome everybody to episode 3 of the Big Fella Weight Loss Podcast. My name is Barry and I'm here to talk about my experiences on a weight loss journey with Mounjaro. In the previous episodes, we've had 2 of them so far. I talked a little bit about myself in the first episode, my history of weight loss battles, a little bit about who I am and why I'm doing this podcast. And last week I talked about how I ended up on Mounjaro and talked about my first few weeks on Mounjaro, first few weeks on the medication and how that went for me, the pluses, the positives, the negatives of all of those first few weeks. So if you haven't already listened to those, then do give them a listen. This week, I'm going to be talking a little bit about how Mounjaro is changing my relationship with food, talking a little bit about my habits and where my food was beforehand and what it's like now, and sort of looking at the things that are working for me from a food perspective these days. As always, I'd like to thank any returning listeners. If you are enjoying the show, please spread the word. If you know anyone else who might enjoy this sort of thing, let them know. And please consider dropping a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And again, always happy to take on board any feedback or suggestions for future topics on the show. You can contact me by using the links in my bio. And you can follow my journey over on TikTok also by finding me at bigfella_baz. That's at bigfella_baz over on TikTok to follow more of my journey over there. So before we move on to the topic for this week, it's time to share my progress update from the last week and reflect on how the last week has went for me. So each week I'll start the show by letting you know how my last week went, what the results were, and we'll take it from there. So I had some big goals to aim for last week. I started the week just 1 pound short of losing 7 stone. So that was the target. Hitting 7 stone was very much an achievable target with only 1 pound. But a slightly more stretching target was in my mind. £3 loss would get me to £100 lost in my journey so far. So 100 was the goal, the stretching goal. If I could get that £3 off this week. The focus was good all week. Food was good, and I'm pleased to say I made it to the Century Club. Absolutely delighted. I lost £4 this week, and that takes me to 7 stone 3 pounds down, or £101 in total. Absolutely mind-blowing numbers. It's taken me 28 weeks to get to those figures. Still a long way to go. I've still got a lot of weight to lose, but to say I was massively pleased this week with the achievement. £100 just feels like a massive milestone. It seems like a ridiculous number. And for the first time in a long time, I'm starting to feel quite proud of what I've achieved so far. And pride isn't a feeling I'm particularly good at, having failed at so many diets in the past. My mind is reluctant to give myself too credit for what I've done because the end still isn't in sight for me. And I've lost 4-5 stone before, and then I've equally put it all back on. So I think my mind is a little bit always wary of the fact that, yeah, you've done so well so far, but it's not done until it's done. Until I get to the end, I haven't really achieved anything, is my thinking. And I've started to get a bit better at giving myself some praise. And as I say, I am feeling quite proud of what I've achieved in terms of over 7 stone now, which is by far the most successful I've ever been on any diet. It's the longest I've ever stuck to any diet. And as I said last week, nowhere near coming to an end of it. I am fully focused on continuing on this journey and getting to where I need to be. So a really good week on the scales. £4, as I say. But each week I like to sort of reflect on what went well and what could have went better. So looking at the positives and the negatives from the last week. So occasionally looking at sort of the non-scale achievements, because it's not all about the numbers on the scales. There are other positives, of course. One of the big positives for me last week was I bought a new pair of jeans. 6 months into my journey, and I've only just got round to buying a pair of jeans, which is quite ridiculous, really, that I've been wearing the same jeans now that I started with. That I was wearing at the start of this journey. they were hanging off me. I was pulling them up all the time. And eventually I've bought a new pair of jeans. I think my mind's a lot slower to catch up with what's going on with my body. And my mind, buying new clothes doesn't feel a priority for me. Anyway, got some new jeans this week. They fit so much better. I'm not pulling them up all the time. And suddenly I feel a lot better just walking around in newer clothes. Just gives you a bit of a boost. So small wins, but definitely a learning point for me. Change the wardrobe more often, as new, well-fitting clothes definitely have a positive effect. So that was one of my positives from last week. And another positive is definitely the amount of people who commented on my progress this week. It's taken quite a while to get to that point, and I think, I mean, part of that is possibly that they had noticed before, but maybe just thought he's done this before, he'll put that all back on. And now I've got beyond that point. I've gone further than I've ever gone before. People are noticing and people are commenting. And for me, so I know some people don't like that. Some people find it quite uncomfortable. I'm quite happy to talk about it. I'm quite happy to tell everybody how I've lost my weight. I don't sort of hide anything. But yeah, nice that people are noticing and commenting. So that was another positive this week. And the other thing, I finally finished week 1 of Couch to 5K. I mean, there's only 3 runs a week, and I started the first Couch to 5K run about a month ago. I'd done 2 runs, but then I've struggled with an ankle injury, so I'd left it. And this week I felt okay, so I jumped back on. I've done week 1, run 3, worked my way through that. So I'm ready to move to week 2 now. That's another positive. In terms of sort of negative takeaways from last week, I didn't have any takeaways, but you know what I mean. I still didn't feel like my planning was the best. There was lots of last minute decisions on what to eat. I was coming home from work and I didn't really know what I was doing, and then sort of having to go to the shop last minute or just sort of winging it last minute. So I know my planning could be better. I've got a little bit out of the routine in the last couple of weeks. What I've done this week is I've went and ordered a meal prep box from Gusto. I've used Gusto and HelloFresh before at various points, and not during this journey, I should say, but I felt it would be a good way of me trying to get back into that routine. So I've got a box arriving later today with 5 meals. It gives me a bit of variety. I'm eating stuff that I wouldn't normally eat. High protein meals, low calorie meals. They're all around 600 calories, portion controlled. And that should help me get into a bit of a routine because I've got the next 5 days of dinners planned. And as I said before, I always like to sort of plan around the dinner. Having my dinner as my main meal, and making sure that's a good balanced meal that will get me through. So yeah, I'll update next week on how the Gusto box went. But I've got some good meals to look forward to there. And my final reflection on last week is a bit of a one for me to consider going forward, because I felt more hungry this week. And I haven't, it's not like I've acted on that and gone and stuffed my face, but I felt like I've had to have a bit more discipline, which gives me a bit of a decision to make on my next pen. I'm currently on 7.5 milligrams. I will be on 7.5 again next week, but a move to 10 could be on the horizon, depending how this week goes. Particularly, I'm recording this on Wednesday. Monday I jab, and Tuesday is normally a very, very sort of low appetite day. Tuesday's always the day where I can't stomach a lot. Yesterday was very different. I was quite hungry all day long, which for a Tuesday early in my week isn't normal for me. So yeah, something for me to think about. I have got the next pen there, which is a 10 milligram anyway, so quite possible we'll move up to 10 milligrams in the next few weeks. Anyway, then we'll move on to this week's topic, and it's really my thoughts on food on Mounjaro and how my habits have changed. And the first big change, obviously, which people would expect on a weight loss medication, is the portion sizes. Mounjaro, as we know, it suppresses your appetite, it slows the digestion, meaning I get fuller quicker and I stay fuller for longer. And the difference in the portion size now is quite significant when compared to my diet before, because I'm one of these who sort of massive portions when I'm not on a diet. And whatever goes on my plate gets eaten. Generally, that's always been my way. I don't waste anything. And this changed quite quickly for me under on Mounjaro. I can still remember the first day where I had to leave food on my plate. I'd made a barbecue. I love doing barbecues, and I still have barbecue quite often. I'd made some rotisserie chicken, corn on the cob. I'd made a homemade healthy slaw and some healthy potato wedges, all on the barbecue. And I probably filled my plate to a similar level as I would have done previously. But I'm looking at it thinking it's grilled chicken, it's a healthy slaw instead of the creamy coleslaw with mayo in. It's healthier chips and corn on the cobs, vegetables, isn't it? And I got halfway through and I could not continue anymore. And I remember taking a photo of what I'd left and I sent it to a few people saying, I can't quite believe this is me leaving this on my plate. Because that's alien to me. It's not something I've ever done. Previously, if it's on my plate, I eat it, whether I'm hungry or not. And similarly, if the kids leave something on their plate, I'll eat whatever they leave as well, because that's what my mind tells me to do generally. Whether I'm hungry or not, I don't like waste. But a week or so into my Mounjaro journey, I experienced that feeling of, I'm full here, I can't eat anymore, I'm not going to eat anymore. And that was probably the point where I started to sort of think more about what was going on my plate, to make sure I wasn't wasting so much. Now, I track everything I eat, and I think that's helped with portion control as well, because when you start to track things like the carbohydrates, so I have lots of rice or pasta or potatoes, I always still keep my carbohydrates in there. And suddenly you track and you realise what an actual portion of rice should be, and realising that, the size of the portion I had was excessive. So now by tracking, I'm weighing everything. I'm weighing out a portion of rice rather than just scooping on as much as I think I need, and trying to manage it that way. So again, tracking has been very useful for me in that sense. So portion sizes have changed significantly. But a bigger change for me is probably more about what goes on between the meals, because I can now go for hours and hours without thinking about food. So snacks are pretty much entirely gone for me. Snacks previously would be mainly savoury. I don't have a sweet tooth. I'm not bothered about biscuits. I'm not bothered about cakes. So for me, those don't bother me. Cutting them out of a diet doesn't bother me. It would normally be things like bread, crisps, cheese, all of the savoury stuff, sausage rolls, things like that. Those are the things that I would have snacked on across a day. But with no hunger between meals now, I just don't need them. I think I've probably had maybe 1 or 2 packets of crisps in the 6 months I've been on this journey. Previously, I could have 1 or 2 packets every single day. Now I think I've maybe had it once or twice with a sandwich as part of a meal, as opposed to just picking up a packet of crisps to snack on. And I don't feel like I'm missing out on those things because I'm just not hungry in between meals. So the odd occasion now, if I do want a snack, and it really is a rare occasion, but now I'd probably turn to something like a protein pudding or something like that. Or quite often these days, it's some protein. I'll have some cooked meats in the fridge. Things like a joint of gammon, or cook up some turkey or something like that, and pick up meat. So it's something sort of decent protein wise. So snacks pretty much gone for me. And then that leaves it pretty easy to plan my day, because it's as simple as 3 meals a day for me now. Now, before I go into what a typical day looks like for me now, I thought I'd talk a little bit about what it was like before. So me at my worst, with no care for my diet at all. Well, on a work day, if I was going into the office, there'd be 2 options to start the day. I'd either have nothing, and then I'd deal with the consequences when I'm starving at 10 o'clock in the morning, or I'd probably pop to Greggs on the morning and pick up a sausage and bacon baguette. Sometimes I'd even order an extra bacon sandwich to go with it, because one breakfast isn't enough, is it? Ridiculous behaviour, of course. And that might be 3 or 4 times a week sometimes. And on the days where I didn't eat breakfast, you could guarantee I'd be reaching for a sandwich or snacking on crisps by 10:30 in the morning. Nothing nutritious about any of it. For lunch, if I hadn't prepared anything, it would be the classic sandwich, crisps, drink, meal deal. But again, that's not enough for me in my bad days. So I might add in a pasty or a sausage roll or something, because why not add an extra 500 or 600 calories into your lunch? And then I'd get home and I'd cook myself something with chips, and it's usually always supplemented by lots of bread. So it might be a burger or a hot dog, or I might cook up something like chicken and chorizo and then stuff it in a big baguette and serve it with loads of fries, plenty of mayo, plenty of cheese. But the one thing that was always involved is lots of bread. Bread was my main downfall, I would say. I love nice bread. I could buy a French steak. I could demolish a whole one for dinner, no problem. Or if not for dinner, if I only had half, let's say, then I'd go back to it later on and I'd finish it before I go to bed, that's for sure. So 10 p.m. at night, I could easily, before going to bed, think, oh, I'll pop in the kitchen, there's some nice bread in there, and I'd go stuff it full of cheese and have a sandwich for no good reason. I'm not hungry. I'm going to bed. I just crave more bread. I know it's there, so I want to eat it. So that would be a typical day for me. Takeaways, if I've not planned my food, there's a good chance a takeaway would be the default option. So coming home from work, it might be chippy at once a week. It might be pizza at least once a week. Loved a good kebab. Still love a good kebab, but I make my own now. And snacks, it would always be that, going back to bread and crisps and things like that. Crisp sandwiches, packets of crisps. As I say, I could get through 2 or 3 packets of crisps, no problem, in a day. So basically, a terrible diet based around savoury foods and lots and lots of bread. And an inability in the past to tell myself that I'm not hungry and I don't need to eat. My head didn't work like that before. My head just eats whenever it's in the kitchen. I couldn't walk in the kitchen without looking in the fridge and seeing what I could pick at. But fast forward to now, things have changed. My lack of interest in sweet treats obviously remains, so that part's easy. Don't need to worry about that. When I go into work and everyone's eating cakes or biscuits or all this sort of thing, don't feel like I'm missing out there. And I've mentioned bread. I've kept bread in my diet because I do love bread. I still love bread, and I don't want to deprive myself of it. But it's now one sensible portion of bread a day as a maximum. Some days I won't have it at all. But now it's, a slice of sourdough, or it's a muffin, or it's a wrap, and it's once a day. That's it. So I can still enjoy a sandwich. I can still enjoy a nice wrap or a bagel. Still got the bread in my diet. And my day really now just boils down to the 3 meals a day because, as I say, I don't need to snack much in between. And I've mentioned previously, I aim for around sort of 400 or 500 calories for breakfast, 500 or 600 calories for lunch, and then that leaves me around 800 or 900 for dinner on an evening. And breakfast's fairly predictable for me. I don't like fruit. Not a huge fan of yogurts or cereals. So breakfast is one I struggle to sort of come up with new ideas for. Evening meals and different ideas for lunches I'm good at. Breakfasts, not so much. I still like a cooked breakfast. I still like sausage, bacon, eggs. So 3 or 4 days a week, I still have a bacon sandwich, or sometimes it might be bacon and sausage. Sometimes it's a breakfast burrito with bacon, sausage, egg. But it's a small portion of bread. It's grilled bacon with fat removed. It's chicken sausages instead of pork. It's eggs cooked in fry light, so no oil or butter added. And all those little changes still keep that under 500 calories. I can have a portion of bread with my breakfast in and keep it under 500 calories. Sometimes just a small muffin, toasted muffin with a couple of slices of bacon in is enough for me. And that comes in around 400 calories, which for me is an all right amount for the start of the day. It's not the most nutritious breakfast, I get that, but if I'm just looking at my calorie goal for the day, and actually I'm getting some protein in there as well, it's not bad. And previous to this, I would have been having that breakfast in half a French steak or something like that, which would have been absolutely astronomical in terms of the number of calories. So yeah, it's still lots of bacon sandwiches, and it's done me no harm. I've lost 7 stone so far. And the key to my plan is really to enjoy what I eat so it doesn't feel like a chore. I do want to enjoy my food, and if bacon sandwich is what I enjoy in the morning, I'm not going to drop that out of my diet. I'll fit it into my diet, and everything else can go around it. Eggs, I eat a lot of eggs in the morning as well, so omelettes appear quite often, or it might just be boiled eggs or a bit of scrambled egg. So again, cooked breakfast, quite a common feature. And on the days where I don't cook breakfast, and it can often be just because I haven't got the appetite or if I haven't got the time, I quite often just turn to a meal replacement. So I do use Huel It gets me a good amount of nutrition. I can drink it on the drive to work. It's good on days where I'm not hungry. And it's fine. It's a good hit of protein. It's got some good nutrition in it, and it'll keep me going till lunchtime. So that's really it for me for breakfast. It's either a breakfast sandwich, an omelette, or a shake. Pretty much sets me up for my day. For lunch, that very much depends on what the breakfast was, because as I said, one portion of bread a day for me. So if I haven't had the bread for breakfast, I'll almost certainly have it for lunch. It might be a wrap or a bagel or something like that. But it's now homemade rather than me going to the shop, so I've got more control over the calories that are going into it. And otherwise, if I've had my bread in the morning, then my lunch will usually just be protein based, so it'll be chicken or salmon, something meaty with some veg on the side, or a salad or whatever. I'm not a big fan of salad, so not tons of salads. I would rather just have a load of broccoli. That tends to be my go-to for vegetables. Tender stem broccoli, I think, goes well with everything, so it's where I end up quite often. I tend not to have tons of carbs at lunch. I'll either have that bread, but I wouldn't, otherwise have tons of carbs. I tend to focus that more on the evening. And when I get to the evening, I really use my evening meal as the focus for my day. It should be something that I know I'm going to enjoy. It's something I look forward to. 800 or 900 calories gives me loads of options. Regular evening meals, things like bolognese, chili, curry, cottage pie. One of my favourites is a lovely creamy Cajun chicken dish, which I actually I used quite a bit when I was on Slimming World back in the day. It uses a light soft cheese instead of cream. And most of these dishes are served up with rice or potatoes and usually more broccoli on the side. I also like lots of Chinese flavours, so quite often my go-to will just be some stir-fried chicken, onions, peppers, and some Chinese flavours. I'll just wing it together. Soy sauce, sesame oil, rice wine vinegar, hoisin sauce, something like that. Get those flavours into it, serve it up with a bit of rice and some broccoli or pak choy. And that's quite common. At least once or twice a week I'll be having something like that. So yeah, very much a lot of rice. I get through lots of basmati rice. Rice, protein and veg. As I say, usually for me, it's going to be broccoli as my main vegetable. I do, of course, have the odd lazy day where I can't be bothered to cook. And for those days, ready meals work fine for me. I've got an Aldi just round the corner. Curry and rice or a cottage pie comes in at around 500 calories. Sometimes, again, I'll add a bit more vegetables to that. Or another thing, which I do have, probably at least once a week, and something I really enjoy is a really easy and tasty option, is some ramen. I get the big packs of the Shin ramen from Morrison's. I love a nice spicy ramen. I mean, those packs of ramen have got loads of salt and sugars in. They're quite high calorie for what they are. But around 500 calories, it fits okay into my day. And I can add some extra stuff as well because I'm allowing myself sort of 800 for an evening. I'll add some gyoza or shredded chicken, spring onions, more veg. I can sort of bulk it out a bit. So I do love a ramen as a quick option as well. That's something I'll go to quite often. I'm good in the kitchen. I can cook. So knocking up a homemade curry is straightforward. Knocking up homemade dishes is absolutely fine. And then making it at home, I'm just in control of everything. I know what's going in. I can control the fats. I can control the calories better. And it's far easier for me to track those meals and know what I'm eating. So that gives a bit of an idea of what my day is like now. Nothing's ruled out. I still eat bread. I still eat curry. I occasionally might eat a pizza, but I'd now go to Marks and Spencer's and I'd get the ultra thin 400 calorie pizza from there, which is perfectly adequate. Fish and chips. I still get a fish and chip takeaway occasionally. Probably only twice in the last 6 months actually, but I had a half portion instead of a full portion. So I rule nothing out of my diet. I don't want to rule anything out. And Mounjaro hasn't prevented me from eating anything. Some people say they can't eat this, they can't eat spicy food, they can't eat cheese. There's nothing that's been taken out of the equation for me. There's nothing that really upsets my stomach or anything. And thankfully, because I still like spicy food, I spice everything up, so I still have plenty of that. Now, of course, what fits into my day and my routine works for me. Might not work for everyone. I have got quite a high calorie allowance due to my weight, so I've got lots of flexibility in my day. But I know different people would be different, and different people will have intolerances to things when they move on to Mounjaro. But I think the biggest bit of advice for me in terms of food is the tracking. Track everything, because you can eat anything you want in moderation, but tracking it allows you to plan the rest of your day around those things and keep your calorie deficit intact. Don't be too restrictive. I think removing entire food groups, particularly ones that you enjoy, for me, it's not the right way to go about things, because it's going to make things more difficult, more of a challenge. I don't want to be too restrictive. And I just think it's about building those better habits and moderating the intake of those sort of things rather than restricting them entirely. The other thing tracking's done for me is focusing more on the macros, things like protein and fibre in particular, which are important when you're on a diet. I've dieted before, but never really focused on hitting specific goals in terms of those things. Now I focus quite a lot on the protein. I try and hit at least 150 grams a day. Fibre, I do struggle with because I don't eat a lot of fruit and things like that. Breakfast's a good place for fibre for a lot of people, and I've talked about how my variety in my breakfast isn't great, but I am taking steps to try and build the fibre in other ways, and tracking allows me to do that. So then, what are some of the lessons I've learned then now, sort of reflecting in terms of my food? I certainly put less on my plate now because I hate waste, and where before I'd just eat everything, now I can't, and it breaks my heart throwing food away. So less on my plate is a key takeaway. Planning ahead as well. I find that if I know what my day looks like ahead of time, then sticking to it all is far easier. Winging it last minute is always likely to lead to more calories or less nutritious meals being made. And whilst that might still keep me in my calorie deficit, it's not as good. So the last few weeks, I know I've been a little bit out of sorts with that planning. And although it's not hit me on the scales, the quality of the diet hasn't been as good, and I'm keen to sort of get back on track with that. So planning. But again, the key thing for me, nothing off limits. Everything in moderation. If there's something you really, really want or you're craving, have it, just moderate it, and deal with the rest of it, the rest of the day around it, and keep your calorie deficit on track that way. But ultimately, for me, there's nothing groundbreaking in my diet that differs hugely from any other calorie deficit diet I might have done before Mounjaro. Mounjaro just makes it easier to stick to. It makes it more manageable. So the diet now is well balanced. It's got lots of variety of food in there, but there's nothing groundbreaking. I'm not eating different kinds of meals because I'm on Mounjaro. I'm just eating the same stuff in smaller quantities and pretty much eliminating all of the snacks. One other big change for me has been eliminating cheat days and cheat meals. And for a start, because nothing's a cheat. If it's tracked and it's in my app, then for me, as far as I'm concerned, it's not cheating. It's just a meal. But in the past, I would lose a stone, let's say, and then I'd treat myself to a Chinese just because I felt I deserved a reward. And I've stopped that sort of thinking. If I want a Chinese, I would go and get a Chinese, and I'd make the right choices around that, and I would track it all. But I wouldn't just get a Chinese for the sake of it because I hit a milestone. Because I don't understand why I used to do that. Sort of 2 steps forward and then 1 step back every time. Now milestones for me, like I've hit this week, they just motivate me to keep on plan and get to the next one. I've hit the 7 stone mark this week, and now I'm focused fully on getting to that 8 stone mark within the next sort of month or by the end of next month. So change of attitude in terms of cut those cheat days out, because in the past those cheat days wouldn't be just one day. It would be a Chinese, it would be a bottle of wine, and the next day I'd wake up feeling rough and I'd want the bacon sandwich from Greg's. And it spirals from there. And I think I've had to take those sort of cheat days out because I know where that can lead for me. That's the sort of thing that leads to a bit of a downfall. So that's another big change. So in summary for me, Mounjaro has changed me. It's changed my habits, and the habits are things I would want to build into my life with or without Mounjaro anyway. As I say, I think Mounjaro just makes it makes it easier to stick to all of that kind of stuff. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is that. Episode 3 done. My thoughts on food, on Mounjaro, and what's changed in my diet and how my routine differs now from what it was before. I've went on a little bit longer than normal this week. I've gone on for 30 minutes. But thank you for listening. If you've made it this far and you've made it 3 episodes in, then thank you very much. Once again, I'd welcome any feedback. from anybody who is listening. Drop a review if you can, and do give me some feedback if there's anything you would like me to talk about in future episodes. For now, though, that is it. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Don't forget to follow me over on TikTok at bigfella_Baz. But for now, we'll get going, and I shall catch up with you next week. Cheers.